President Donald Trump Thursday took aim at diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives to suggest without evidence they could be responsible for the deadly plane crash near Washington.
The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite.
CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes joins me now from the White House. Nancy, can you help put into perspective these claims that the president is making without evidence regarding DEI and why he's making these declarations based on what he's calling common sense?
Sure, Lindsay. So he claimed repeatedly in that press conference and then later in the Oval Office that he had increased the standards at the FAA for air traffic controllers when he was president during his first term, but that they were much lower during the Obama years and that Biden then lowered them again. We have been asking the White House all day for any proof that that is actually the case, that he somehow raised the standards, because other officials we've been speaking to say that isn't the case. The White House provided us with a link to a class action lawsuit that was filed back in 2016 by some individuals who said that the Obama FAA had changed the entry test for air traffic controllers to make it more difficult for white people to get accepted into the pool. I don't know the status and the validity of that lawsuit, but what I can tell you is that they weren't able to provide us with any actual direct evidence that he had overhauled the standards for air traffic controllers when he was president. And if that had actually happened, that would be something that would be pretty easy to do. What experts tell me is that actually the standards for air traffic controllers have always been quite high, Lindsay. It requires 2 to 4 years of training. About half of the individuals who start the program end up dropping out along the way. And so the biggest challenge when it comes to air traffic controllers usually hasn't been the standards. It's been a shortage, trying to find enough people willing to go through all of that training.
Following the collision, President Trump announced a new acting FAA administrator. What do we know about who he chose and what their job will be?
Right. His name is Chris Rochelot. He's a U.S. Air Force veteran. He actually worked at the FAA for 20 years, so he's got a lot of experience there. And they had to move quickly because there was something of a leadership vacuum at the FAA. The former administrator actually stepped down on the same day that President Trump was inaugurated last Monday. He had several more years left on his term, but he had come under fire in recent months by a close Trump ally, Elon Musk. So he probably saw the writing on the wall, assumed that Trump would remove him once Trump came into office. And so he beat him to the punch and left. But that meant that at the top of the FAA, you really had no clear a line of command. And obviously, the FAA is going to be quite busy in the coming days and weeks.
And we know that this is Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy's second day. What will he be tasked with?
Well, he's getting a lot of feedback from members of Congress, from the White House, about things that people are concerned about that they think may have contributed to this accident that he will likely have to examine, including the possibility of congestion at Reagan National Airport, the possibility that he may have to work with the Pentagon to revamp the rules for helicopters in the vicinity of Reagan National, all of this at a time when he's still figuring out, how to get to his office and who the people are who are surrounding him, because, as you pointed out, he's been on the job for less than 48 hours.
Nancy Cordes, thank you. Several members of the U.S. figure skating community were on board the American Airlines flight, which took off from Wichita, Kansas. The organization said the skaters were returning home from a development camp held with the U.S. Figure Skating Championships. CBS News correspondent Ian Lee is in Wichita and joins us now. Ian, you attended one of the vigils in Wichita. What are you hearing from those in attendance?
Well, Lindsay, this is very much a community in shock. People wondering how something like this could happen. Being at that vigil earlier this afternoon, what stood out to me was just how many people from the community who didn't have a direct connection to one of those passengers turned up looking for some sort of solace. This is a community that is very tight-knit, and so you are seeing a lot of grief. I spoke with one woman, though. She did know one of the passengers. That woman grew up with her daughter. She described them almost as like a second family, saying they would look out for each other, they would help each other in times of need, and that they were really tight. And she had tears in her eyes when she was describing this person, and also really wondering how something like this could happen. Nothing can prepare you for this. And you know what's interesting, Lindsay, is I'm just looking at the departure board, which is just behind my camera, and that flight is still on the board. American Airlines flight 5342. It says it's been canceled. That would have left about 24 hours ago. So you can imagine, just 24 hours ago, those people were looking at that same board, looking for that flight. So it just shows how raw this tragedy is.
It is very chilling. What do we know about the skaters who were lost in the crash, Ian?
Well, we know there were a number of skaters from the Boston region, 6 people from that skating club, 2 coaches, 2 skaters, and their mothers. We know that the skaters were Gina Han and Spencer Lane. Lane was someone who had left high school to pursue a career in ice skating, was described as a force of nature by his father, someone who, people say we could have seen in the Olympics further down the road, as well as Gina Han. These are 2 people who had a lot of potential in the ice skating world, and people are really feeling their loss today. And the 2 other people were coaches. They were Russian nationals. They were Vadim Nemov and Evgenia Shishkova. These were people who wanted to help foster the next generation of ice skaters here in America. Their son, Max, who also skates for Team USA, had left on an earlier flight. He was here in Wichita. He left on an earlier flight. And so, as you can imagine, this tragedy really just affecting communities across the nation.
What are U.S. figure skating officials saying?
Yeah, right now it is a small community. It's a tight-knit community, and so there is a sense of loss. We're hearing from U.S. figure skating saying, we are devastated by this unspeakable tragedy and hold the victims' families closely in our hearts. We will continue to monitor the situation and will release more information as it becomes available. But these are people who knew each other from across the nation. And so when you do have a tragedy like this, it really does impact everyone.
Ian Lee, thank you.